So, the French format is the most common and most balanced form of Genshin Impact competitive. As of writing, it is used by the most number of competitive tournaments and leagues, and will only gain popularity as MiHoYo has realized that making really good C1s and C2s makes me spend more money. Other formats do not currently account for this sudden power creep of early constellations, so this is the only format that feels balanced while we are still able to use early Fontaine character constellations. Unfortunately, it is also probably the most complex format, but it is what it is. This video aims to teach anyone watching how to play the most common form of French format, as right now, there isn't a central place to find out how to play Pickban. Starting with an overview of the system. The French format weighs every single 5-star character and a few 4-star characters to determine an account's overall box score. This box calculation is usually done automatically using a spreadsheet or other tool, and graciously, Lynn, one of my server regulars, has produced a simplified spreadsheet that you guys can use that's linked in the description. After you put in your characters, players compare their box scores and determine how many additional bans the weaker account gets, including special bans on every third additional ban referred to as Joker bans. The players then perform their draft phase, with the additional bans happening prior to the standard drafting. Players then equip their chosen characters and alternate clearing floor 12, taking note of their finish times. That's the basic concept. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. To explain the draft phase, let's look at an example draft between a couple of my server regulars. This is a practice draft that actually happened, but it was in the 4.6 Abyss. Mistake has a pretty unusual account that puts a lot of emphasis on a few select problem carries, namely C3 Arlecchino and C6 Kazuha. Additionally, his C2 Xianyun enables a few novel Claymore carries, specifically D-Luke. Meanwhile, Swezi is a dolphin, or maybe a whale. He has quite a few power constellations: C1 Chlorind, C2 Raiden, C1 Nuve, C2 Naida, just to name a few. This means his box score is high enough that Mistake gains 2 additional standard bans and 1 additional Joker ban. A Joker is a one-sided ban, aka if I Joker ban Nuvolette, then my opponent cannot pick him while I still can. During the drafting phase, each player gets 5 minutes of total time, at least in tournaments or more serious practice runs. To start with, Stake will select his additional bans, in this case, Nuvolette, Raiden, and a Joker ban on Kazuha. Then we enter the standard alternating pick ban phase, which is common to all formats, though box formats throws us an additional rule. If both players are above a certain box score, then there will be 3 initial bans for both players rather than 2. In this scoring format, the score was 500. Since Mistake is below that, then there will only be 2 initial bans. Mistake is banning first, usually this is decided by coin flip. He and Swezi take their initial 2 bans, alternating. Note here that Swez bans Kazuha because Stake Joker banned it, so Swez still has benefit to banning him. Then, Stake takes first pick, Swezi then takes 2 picks, then Stake takes 2 picks, then Swez takes 2 picks, and then Mistake takes 1 more pick, his 4th pick. How I explained that wasn't very elegant, but hopefully you can see the pattern. After both players perform 4 picks, the mid ban occurs, with the opposite player being, quote, first. So Swezi now does his mid ban and Stake does his mid ban. Also, if your specific tournament has weapon bans, this is usually where they happen. But this is becoming much more rare since it starts invalidating Nilo specifically. Now, Swez takes his 5th pick, or the, quote, first pick of the second half. Mistake takes 2, Swez takes 2, Mistake takes 2, and Swez takes the last pick. Both players now have 8 characters and will now equip their characters, organize their teams, and head into the Abyss. Since they're building their characters, this is now the time to also discuss weapons. Box format has a weapon point system, where limited 5-star weapons are worth 2 points, and standard 5-star weapons are worth 1 point. 5-star weapon refines are not allowed. Tournaments often have a set point maximum, usually 5 points, but occasionally you see a flexible weapon point system, where the player with the lower box score is given the ability to select the match's weapon points. Both players then verify with each other that they're using the correct characters and weapons, then load into the Abyss. In this clearing phase, there's not much to talk about other than the mechanics of it all. Showing an example here doesn't really gain us anything. Both players will share their screens with each other or to the judge/host. Then, usually the player who picked first will go first, with players alternating clearing each chamber. The Abyss card that is selected is decided by the player's opponent, which can lead to situations where an opponent might select a damage card that also reduces a player's survivability, hoping for the player to fail a clear, a thing that happens when you are focused on trying to clear so fast that you do not dodge attacks. Speaking of dying, most box formats allow 1 to 2 free retries. This retry can be used at any point in the full clear, but once it is used, further retries will incur a penalty. What this penalty is depends on the exact format, some trying to prevent doing late retries, while others consider this as part of the strategy. After each chamber, the clear time is noted, and at the very end, the clear times are totaled, with the player with the lower clear time given the victory. And that's basically it. But here's some other rule minutia which didn't feel appropriate mentioning anywhere else. 1. Most tournaments or leagues allow a set number of characters to be removed from their box, declared at the start of the tournament. This is to remove characters that aren't built yet, you wouldn't use in a pick ban context, or both. Often the limit is 5. 2. Most leagues will do a best of 2 format, where players perform 2 clears and sum the total clear time. Any DNFs result in the other player's win. 3. There's actually an online tool built for this format that some people can use. However, it's password protected, so I'm not sure how available it is to the average player. Depending on if I still have access, you might have been seeing some graphics from it in this video. I offer the spreadsheet as a consolation prize, and many players use a Genshin tier maker to track picks and bans for more casual play. And that's it. That's how you pick ban. At least in the box format. If all you wanted to know was how to play, you can leave. But I'm gonna yap a little bit on my opinions regarding this format. I call it the box format as opposed to the French format, despite that being the more common term, because the current weighing system we have is actually maintained by a group of Brazilian players. It's just called French because originally it was started by the French player base. So I call it box format to avoid confusion. There's a lot of pros to this format. How the box score works means that if you really love Yoimiya and got her C6, you can play her in a format that lets her be balanced against people who optimize their account and only roll speedrun power cons like C2 Farina. And don't feel obligated to roll units. In my experience, the additional bans actually do a really good job of balancing between players. Box format also lets whales play against free-to-plays, though both players feel really unhappy about it. It's definitely more optimized for when the max number of additional bans is around 3. In an ideal world, we would have enough players to have point brackets in the same way that like real-life boxing has weight brackets. It also has some uncomfy parts too, namely a lot of characters' point values are balanced around the assumption that you rolled the character's signature weapon. That's pretty bad, but there's not really an effective way to balance this without the guys who determine all the points to also determine points for every single 5-star weapon you own. Additionally, this format kind of assumes that you have all the good constellations of the relevant old 4-stars, so if you only have like a C3 Xiangling, a C5 Fischl, or a C1 Kuki, then the lessened power is not really reflected in your box score. That being said, it is definitely the most balanced format, and I'd recommend giving it a try. Hope you'll join us, subscribe for more pick ban content, like if this was helpful, and thanks for watching.